Are you a kind soul that likes to heal broken hearts? Do you also have a deep fire burning at your core that wants to come out? Do you like having so many cards in hand that you need a search bar in order to look for them? Then get ready for a ton of damage, a bunch of healing, and a synergy that shines as bright as the sun without the need to cancel your next vacation. That's right, for around 17 US dollars, we're showing you a deck you can build, master, upgrade, and even bring to your local league to have fun with and compete in matches. Hello, Inkspilled Glimmers. I'm your host, Nick, and welcome back to Inkling Adventures, the series where we help you take your first journey into the world of Lorcana. Today, we're exploring the world of deck building with a starter budget version of Ember Ruby Healing. You ready? Let's take a dive. Ember and Ruby have two complementary mechanics that are made for each other. And we don't mean that on accident. You can see through the card design that they literally were. So it would be a shame not to make a damage and healing based deck around it. Basically, Ruby likes to play a lot of cards that enter with damage or interact with damage or create damage on your characters. And Ember, on the other side, really loves to remove those damage counters for effect, like drawing cards. So this deck just combines the two. Play a lot of character with damage counters or ways to put damage counters on your character. Remove the damage counters to draw cards with the Ember cards. And then use those characters to challenge, put more damage on themselves, heal them again, and eventually flood the board, draw a ton of card, remove your opponent's characters, and just have a blast. While this deck doesn't have any evasiveness built in and relies a lot on their character, it's a really great deck that's going to make you feel maybe a little too great, and your opponent might feel a little bit more miserable. So while this deck is filled to the brim with princesses and charming lights and glowy stuff, don't forget that you're basically there to take their soul away and draw all the cards until you win. This deck comes out swinging, with its game plan coming in full effect all the way in turn 1. Either you play Pluto Friendly Pooch, who's going to ramp you into your bigger characters by exerting to allow you to pay 1 less for your characters, or you play Mulan Injured Soldier, a 2/3 who comes into the board with 2 damage counters already on her. When we're saying we're going to play damage character, that's what we mean. That's what we're going to do. That's the core of the deck. On turn 2, well, you can already start easing up that pain a little bit by playing Rapunzel Sunshine, who's going to be able to exert to remove 2 damage from chosen character. Hey, look at that. Mulan has 2 damage on her. Or Mother Gothel, who comes into play with 3 damage counter, but is a 3/4 for 2. When we get to heal that, she's going to punch hard for a really low cost. The other option is to play Queen of Heart, Impulsive Ruler. We've seen her in some other decks already. She's a 2/2 rush character that is really good at removing the threats, but also at being a good target for Queen of Hearts Sensing Weakness, which is a premium Ruby card in lower powered or lower budget decks that allows you to draw cards whenever you challenge another character. If you don't do that, you could also play Ember Chromicon on turn 2. The Ember Chromicon exerts each turn to remove up to 1 damage from each of your character. That each of your character part is going to become relevant in a second. At 3 drops, we can keep playing damage character with Beast Wounded. He's a 2/6 that comes into play with 4 damage and quests for 2. Or we can start healing some of our characters to draw cards with Julieta Madrigal. When you play her, you may remove up to 2 damage from chosen character. If you remove damage this way, you may draw a card. We're starting to see here the intrinsic mechanic of having a damaged character, healing them to draw cards that I was hinting about earlier. We also have Raya, Fierce Protector. Whenever she challenges another character, you gain 1 lore for each other damaged character you have in play. We do have a lot of those. We also have Wreck-It Ralph, who whenever you ready him, you gain 1 lore for each 1 damage on him. So if you find ways to put him to, 2, 3 damage, he's gonna come up at the beginning of the turn and gain you lore instantly for basically doing nothing. In the 4 drops, we have Minnie Mouse, Compassionate Friend. Whenever she quests, you may remove up to 2 damage from chosen character. Hey, more healing. Look at that. And then, the next turn you can pay 4 to shift Minnie Mouse Drum Major on her. Minnie Mouse Drum Major, if you use Shift to play her, you may search your deck for a character card, reveal it to all players, shuffle your deck, and put that card on top of it, meaning she can go get any character you want. And in a deck so full to the brim with good characters, that's exactly what we want to do. On the 5 drop, you can also play Pluto Rescue Dog. When you play him, you may remove up to 3 damage from one of your characters. That's always useful in a deck like this one. But more importantly, starting on turn 3, you can shift Rapunzel Gifted Artist, or you can play her directly on 5. Rapunzel Gifted Artist is a 0/6 that quests for 2 and says, whenever you remove 1 or more damage from one of your characters, you may draw a card. Now, the important part here is the from one of your characters, meaning if you have 3 or 4 damage character, and you use the Chromicon to remove 1 damage from each of them, well, that is 3 or 4 triggers of Rapunzel and 3 or 4 card draws. When this character is in play with your damaged characters and you start healing, you are gonna draw a ton of cards. She is the key piece of this deck, and you should respect her. A good way to use her, by putting damage and distributing it, is Hydra, Deadly Serpent. As one of the cheapest legendaries out there, it is completely outrageous that people are not playing this card more. It's a 6-cost uninkable 6/5 that whenever this character is dealt damage, deal that much damage to chosen opposing character. So, if it challenges something, the damage it gets redistributed. If it gets challenged, same thing. But more importantly, if you were to say, do Teeth and Ambition that does 2 damage to chosen character of yours to deal 2 damage to another chosen character, well, you could redistribute the 2 damage you put on Hydra somewhere else and do 4 damage for it. That's great. And then you can heal your Hydra, because we have a lot of ways to do that. Finally, rounding up our characters, we have Pluto, Determined Defender. He's a 7-cost 3/8 that quests for 2, shifts for 5 on our small little Pluto from turn 1. Has Bodyguard to protect our brave characters. And at the start of your turn, remove up to 3 damage from this character, so he heals himself every turn, which triggers Rapunzel. Look at that, the synergy, it's amazing. We've already talked about the Teeth and Ambition, we've already talked about the Chromicon. The only song we haven't touched on is Heal What's Been Hurt. This is a 3-cost song that removes 3 damage from chosen character and replaces itself in your hand by drawing a card. So it's just the perfect fit for this list. This is a great, fun, powerful budget list that is a blast to play with. But let's say you want a little more. This deck has a few good upgrade paths at a lot of price points, from some of the lowest to some of the highest in the game. We'll start with the highest one, because really we'd be remiss if we didn't mention it. Rapunzel Gifted with Healing is a card that's almost $50 each. But when you play her, you can remove up to 3 damage from one of your characters and draw a card for each damage removed this way. Earlier, we were talking about how this synergy wasn't an accident. Rapunzel came out in set 1, removes up to 3 damage from a character. Mother Gothel, her adoptive mother, comes out in set 2 with 3 damage counter on her. This was really made to be a synergy from the start, so we had to mention the card that brought it all together. We do not encourage people to wildly go by this card. It is an amazing staple for the game, but it's still a $50 card and you can have a lot of fun without buying it. However, if you have the means to do it and love the deck and love the dynamic, it is a card that is going to bring you value into your decks way into the game. If you're more on a budget, you might want to go with Lady Tremaine or Madame Medusa in Ruby. Both are 6 cost on Inkable. Both are about $1.30, $1.40 a piece. And both are basically removal on a stick. Lady Tremaine forces your opponent to choose one of their character and banish it. Madame Medusa lets you in control of the choice, but only targets character with 3 power or less. Once they're there, they have 4 willpower, they can be damaged, they can be healed. They get into the whole game plan once they've hit the board. But they serve as a good prime removal once they enter. Similarly, Scar Vicious Cheater is a card that's a little over $4. That is a 6/5/4/7 uninkable with Rush. That whenever it's your turn and he banishes another character in a challenge, you may ready him and you can't quest for the rest of the turn. He can still challenge though. So this character, as long as you have ways to heal him, can go through all of the opponent's board in a single turn as long as they're exerted and really swipe everything. Now, if you want to move away from this healing damage mechanic and go more into the traditional build of Ember Ruby that we see in the more competitive circles, you'll want to go into Mufasa, Betrayed Leader. This 5-cost inkable 3/3 that quests for 2 says, when this character is banished, you may reveal the top card of your deck. If it's a character card, you may play that character for free, and they enter play exerted. Otherwise, put it on the top of your deck. Meaning that he's an aggressive quester or challenger that will, most of the time, replace himself with another card once he's defeated. That other card, likely having an interplay ability like Rapunzel's Madame Medusa or Lady Tremaine, will allow the cycle to keep going and allow you to gain even more value. Similarly, the big finisher, if you go on the Mufasa route, is Maleficent, Monstrous Dragon. She's a 7/5/9 inkable, questing for 2, that when she comes into play, you banish chosen character, pure and simple. That sums up the deck. Now, let's go see how out of control it can be and how powerful it is in a real game. Ember Ruby has got to be one of the most represented synergies that we've seen in Lorcana so far, with cards that synergize together in both colors being printed ever since set 1. However, it's not a deck that's made a ton of waves outside of the Mufasa, more character-focused deck, and the healing mechanic, while used with Rapunzel gifted with healing, is not as prohibitive as one would think. So it's really nice to see the more budget versions of the deck being so fun to play. Here we can see turn 1 we played Pluto, turn 2 we played Mulan, Damage Warrior, and Mother Gothel, all in the same turn. So we already have 3 characters on board while the opponent is putting their board together with Sapphire Steel. And that board, while damaged, is going to do a lot of work for us if we can find our healers. Because we want those characters to have that damage. It's supposed to be a downside, but we can see Raya, who is already gaining from having damaged character on the board, and then we're going to see our healing characters come in and draw cards from there and do a lot of fun stuff. So Really, this is a deck that wants to do this kind of thing. And if the opponent doesn't react fast, the game might be over before they start. Here, let's see what they do. They ink their location, play a Pacha. That Pacha is going to start gaining lore every single turn for them, which is good, but might not be fast enough. We'll see. Because here, we're already playing the shifted Rapunzel. And what she does is that whenever you heal one character, any one character, you draw a card. So if we start healing a lot of our characters, well then we're gonna start drawing a lot of cards from there. And meanwhile our opponent is still just developing their board, putting a Triton on board that sure can sacrifice items to gain 3 lore, but is probably not going to come rushing in our face here. So let's see what we do. We already have, like, this is beginning of turn 5. We already have 5 characters on board. We already have most of our engine going. We just need ways to heal our characters. And we're going to get rolling. And here, we see Julieta coming down, healing 2 from Mother Gothel, drawing a card. And then Rapunzel making us draw another card. Then we're going to ink a second Rapunzel. Do Teeth and Ambition on Raya to do 2 damage to Triton. And then play a Chromicon. Chromicon is going to heal 3 of our characters. We're going to draw 3 cards. And that's the gist of the engine. That's really the core of it. Now, our Mother Gothel no longer has damage on her. She's a 3/4 that costs us only 2 and threatens the opponent's board. And we're threatening with the Chromicon to just draw a ton of cards with Rapunzel every single turn from now on. So the opponent really needs to find answers and find them fast. They're sacrificing a Fortis here for 3 lore, trying to keep up, but exposing their Triton, which means we're probably going to be able to challenge him, as we do here with Rapunzel, put damage on 2 of our characters, and probably just activate the Chromicon. Yeah, playing a second Chromicon there. So that's going to be a lot of card draw, and with a beast that comes in with 4 damage. Yeah, that's going to be a tough one. So here, healing 5 of our characters, drawing 5 cards. And we still have a second Chromicon that's going to be able to heal up another 3 of our characters, drawing us another 3 card, and basically nullifying any damage we took this turn from removing the opponent's board. And now that's an overwhelming board, and in a setting like this one that doesn't really have big board removals like Be Prepared, this is where those character builds can really overpower something like Sapphire Steel, who is a little bit slower, doesn't run as much characters in removal because they're hoping for a bigger combo finish. But here they're probably not going to get there. Their Pacha might draw them a few cards, might gain them a few lore turn, and sure, they might find their solutions to get even farther in lore, but here we're just going to quest for a lot already and heal and draw even more cards. Like, we're going to Teeth and Ambition here, put 2 damage on Raya, which we're going to use to just remove it right away and draw cards from it. So the downside from Teeth and Ambition is really an upside for us in this deck. But let's see what we're going to deploy first. We're going to play Pluto. We'll exert Pluto +2 to play another beast, coming in with 4 damage counter. And then we're going to play Mulan, Injured Soldier, and another Mulan, Injured Soldier. And then we're going to heal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 characters with our Chromicon, drawing us another 7 cards. Now, we're at a point where if the game was going any further, we might want to be careful with that may draw a card ability to not draw too many cards, draw an entire deck, and lose from no longer having cards. But here, not too much of an issue. We're still probably going to win on next turn, given the board of the opponent and the kind of game that they play, and the fact that we've removed a lot of damage from our characters already. So even a Grab Your Sword would not pose us a lot of threat. Here our opponent plays Glean, sacrifices their Great Stone Dragon to get to 17 still, so I was saying it wasn't much of a challenge. Sapphire Steel climbing up out of nowhere to try to win, but yeah, we're just way overboarding. And there you have it. Even when faced with a combo deck that came out of nowhere, we were able to generate an insurmountable amount of card draw and flood the board to a point where there was absolutely nothing for them to do in order to stabilize. Be careful if you run this deck in the wild to cards like Be Prepared and Grab Your Sword that might get you. But even that one, if it doesn't kill your board, will just fuel your Chromicon to draw even more. That's gonna be it for today, folks. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment with the card you would put in the deck if you were the one building it. We'll see you tomorrow, but until then, keep on questing.